So let's do our last comparative static, the price of X changing. And again, we start out with M divided by PY and M PX1 and M divided by PX2. So what had to happen to the price of X if I shifted my endpoint and the budget constraint or feasible set from here out to here? Did the price of X go up or did the price of X go down? The price of X had to go down because we can buy more good X at PX2 than we could at PX1. And similarly for PX3, so we're looking at 3 different prices of X. And the highest price is PX1, the lowest price is PX3, and PX2 is in the middle. Now, I want one set of preferences, so I'm going to draw one family of indifference curves for one individual, and I'm just going to draw the points, the indifference curves that are tangent to each one of these 3 budget constraints. So, missed it. So here, this is X1. This is the optimal amount of a good X that they buy when the price of X is PX1 and they have income here and price of Y is that. Okay? And then the next one, again, indifference curves cannot cross. And finally, here. Again, we're maximizing utility. We're maximizing utility subject to the budget constraint. We're finding the point where the indifference curve is just touching the new budget constraint. Okay? Now, let's go one step further on this. And let's mark down here, again, good X, but let's put the price of X on the vertical axis. And we're going to map out X1, X2, and X3, just dropping those down. And which was the highest price of X when we were buying X1, right? So PX1 is right here, PX2 is right there, and PX3 is right there. So if I connect these dots, right? So this told me when the price of up here in this graph, this is telling me how much, what is a consumer's problem? Maximizing utility, subject to the budget constraint. Okay, the consumer, when the price of X is PX3, the consumer maximizes utility subject to their budget constraint by buying X3 units. We're going to plot that one down here. Price of X is PX2. They maximize utility subject to their budget constraint. We're going to plot that one down here. Same thing for PX1. Now, what happens when we connect these dots? What do we end up with? Well, we end up with the relationship between the price of X and the optimal amount of X purchased. The price of X and the optimal amount of X purchased. This is the consumer's demand curve. For good X, the consumer's demand curve for good X. It tells us for every possible price of X, how much the consumer will buy, how much the consumer is willing and able to buy. And we did that through maximizing utility subject to their budget constraint. And what did we need to get to maximizing utility subject to the budget constraint? We needed 6 axioms of consumer preference, and we needed to be able to say that we have a budget constraint and prices. Okay? So that gets us the consumer's demand curve. That's how we derive the consumer's demand curve from utility max.